Congratulations on receiving this award. I speak on behalf of my team. We're all very excited about this year's, or I should say last year's, the FY 22 projects. And we're just eager to get ready and start working with you all. So the meeting's being recorded. The recording should be available on our website. In previous years, it's taken a couple weeks to get up there. So just as a little heads up, it's likely not going to be ready tomorrow, but within the next 2 to 3 weeks, hopefully earlier, but soon on our website, you'll have access to all of the recordings for today's meetings. So should you want to go back and revisit something, or if you have team members that you think would benefit from some of this information, you're welcome to direct them to our website for the recordings. We're going to try and keep everybody on mute. So if you could mute yourself, that would be appreciated. My team members will be muting people who they see are not on mute, but sometimes, with a long list of attendees like this, people can get lost in the shuffle and it can just take a while to find who's off mute. So to the extent that you're able, please keep yourself on mute. We'll have a Q&A scheduled at the end of each presentation. So during that time, you're more than welcome to raise your hand and we'll take you off mute. And, we can have a discussion and talk through your questions at that point. All right, Caroline, could you advance to the next slide, please? All right, so this is our agenda for today. After the kind of brief introductions that we're going to go through now, the team introductions, my colleague Caroline is going to go through some of the key elements of our new grantee guide. This is really kind of the CIG Grants Management 101, what you'll need to know to get started and in administrating your agreement. Then my colleague Jean Brewer is going to talk about grants financial management. We'll have a short break at 2 o'clock Eastern time. So I should mention all these times are in Eastern. So a short half-an-hour break in the afternoon. And then at 2:30, we're going to reconvene. The sessions after 2 o'clock, so from 2:30 and beyond, are specific to our on-farm trials awardees. So as part of this orientation today, we've got two groups of folks that fall under the SIG umbrella, our SIG Classic awardees and our on-farm trials awardees. So the on-farm trials awardees are going to be the ones that are going to be hanging on for that 2:30 session. And then even, after that session, which is about just information specifics to considerations for on-farm trials, at 3:15, we're going to have an even more specific session. That's for our soil health demo awardees. And when we get to the on-farm trials session, I'll pop up a list of the soil health demo awardees. If by case you've forgotten which priority you fall under, I'll make sure folks know who is supposed to be at that session. So that's going to be at 3:15, and then we'll be wrapping up at 4 o'clock today. Before we get into the presentations, I just want to give some brief introductions of my team. So again, my name is Leah Hermans. I am the program manager for on-farm trials. And then let me just pass things on. I'll start with my colleague Caroline. Caroline, if you want to pop your video on and just come on and give a quick introduction.
Hi, hopefully everyone can see me. I can't actually see myself because I'm sharing my screen. But my name is Caroline Chironi, and I'm one of the program managers for the Conservation Innovation Grants program. I oversee the grant lifecycle for the SIG Classic program. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jean. Oh, I'm sorry.
I was trying to put myself off mute, but I've got a sticky mute button today. Go ahead, Jean. Sorry about that.
Hi. I'm Jean Brewer, and I assist Leah and Caroline with grants management operations. I handle reports, 425s, and claims. So, and I also handle the SIG inbox and any requests, emails, inquiries that come in to that box. Hi.
Thanks, Jean. All right, we also have Kip Sherry with us today.
Hi, everyone. Yes, I'm Kip Cherry. I work with the technology transfer process with all the products that are produced from these CIG projects, and look forward to working with you all.
And last but not least, we are very lucky to have Tom on board as a detailee. Tom, would you like to pop on and introduce yourself?
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Tom Kilbasa. I'm the Public Affairs Specialist for NRCS Maine, but I'm assisting the SIG team on a detail this summer. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom. All right, as I look at our participant list, I also see a lot of our NRCS technical contacts have joined today. So Caroline's going to go into more detail about this later, but we do have one technical contact assigned to each project. And so your technical contact will be reaching out to you directly, or they'll be reaching out to whoever was listed as the awardee technical contact in your application. They'll be reaching out to you directly to set up a time to meet and speak with you if they haven't done so already. So you'll get an opportunity to meet your technical contacts one-on-one soon. So with that, that was just our quick introductions. I can pass things over to Caroline Sharoni to kick off the presentations for the day.
Okay. Great, thanks, Leah. So I am not going to keep my camera on. I'm just going to say hello again and move right into the presentation because I don't want a distraction. So on the invitation yesterday, I attached to the invitation a document called the new grantee guide. So myself and John Brewer, we're going to basically go through today the details in that guide. It's basically just how to get started with the post-award management of your project. See. Now, to start out though, most of you do not have a fully executed agreement yet. So no charges can happen to a project until the award has been fully signed. Leah, you'd have to let us know if any of yours have. I've got, I think, 10 of my 17 awards, the paperwork submitted. I still am working on 7 of them. And I think, Leah, you got all of yours submitted, but that doesn't mean things have been fully executed. So the FPAC Business Center, which I'm going to talk about a little bit later, they are processing these agreements for us, where they go and they do a thorough review specifically of the financial elements, and they are the ones who actually get the chief's signature. So basically, if you do not have a fully executed agreement, you should not be charging anything to the awards unless you have approval for pre-award costs, and we're actually having a lot of trouble getting pre-award costs approved this year. The FPAC Business Center has rejected the one request we've sent in so far. So we're still trying to get some of those things approved, but you know, if you have the need for pre-award costs, we will try to get them approved, but it's not guaranteed. So in addition to having a fully executed agreement, at NIFA, they take regulatory requirements on Environmental Species Act, Historic Preservation Act, and NEPA very seriously. And we do for each project an environmental evaluation of the project before any ground disturbing activities can start. So if you have what is considered ground disturbing activities on your projects, and many of our projects do, please don't start any of those activities. You can start the project if you have a fully executed agreement, but don't start any of the on the ground activities and ground disturbing activities, I should say. And the definition of that is a little loose. Regular farming activities on land that has already been farmed is not considered ground disturbing, but a lot of our projects will fall into this category. So just be aware. And state offices will be contacting you on that. I'll talk about that a little bit later. So just be aware, most of you cannot start your projects yet. So today I'm going to go through who the contacts are and when you should contact who, because there are a lot of contacts on these awards. It can get very confusing, so we try to make that as simple as possible for you. I'm going to talk a little bit about match requirements. I'll touch base really briefly on payment requests, go over reporting, evaluations, agreement modifications, and then environmental compliance and cultural resource regulations. As well, I'll touch on communication. So who's who at NRCS? The first point of contact we want you to know about is the technical contact. And each project has a different technical contact. At this point, your technical contact has been asked to contact you and set up a one-on-one meeting with you. Since most of you don't have an agreement in place, you can't charge the time yet for project activities to your project. So if you want to delay that meeting until your agreement is started, that's fine. Just let them know. So they should be contacting you, and they will. They're basically what we consider the first point of contact for you on the project, and I'll go over what we exactly mean by that. As well, there's the NRCS program managers and the financial analyst, and we've all introduced ourselves to you. And the last point of contact for the program is the Farm Production and Conservation Business Center's administrative contact. So this is the last person, and I'm going to go over in detail who all these people are. But what we want as a take home to you is that when in doubt, email the NRCS CIG inbox. We have an inbox, and we will answer any of your questions within a day. It will get your question to the right person, just because there are so many people involved and it is confusing. So when in doubt, just email the inbox. So the technical contact, we consider the first point of contact for you on the project. It's the job of the technical contact to ensure the project objectives are being met and the project is meeting its milestones. Technical contacts are basically NRCS subject matter experts. What you'll see is we probably do a little bit more oversight than other federal grant programs. One of the reasons is NRCS has so many employees, right? So, NIFA is just a granting agency, NSF is just a granting agency, but NRCS is an agency that has people on the ground in every county in the US. So what we do is we use NRCS subject matter experts as our technical contacts to make sure we get very good review of these projects. But also, these technical contacts are a great gateway for these project teams to NRCS and USDA. So basically, you have access to USDA through them, and they can help you a lot of times figure out questions, especially for within NRCS. A lot of our project teams are trying to, make changes on conservation practices, and having someone who knows NRCS doing the oversight of the project can be very, very helpful. So I think someone has become unmuted. So if everyone can just check that they're muted. But it's their job to keep in regular contact with the grantee. We ask that they contact you at least every 6 months. Some of them will actually come to your meetings if you invite them, and they'll be in contact with you much more than that. But it's their job to approve progress reports, approve final reports, also to write an evaluation of the project at the end of the project, and to approve any project changes. So any prior approvals submitted or agreement amendments submitted, we will look to them to sign off on those. Also, we try to get all of them to do at least one site visit during the life of the award. The thing is, though, you will not find their name on your agreement. So you're going to have to, if they don't contact you, you're going to have to ask us who your technical contact is, and we will let you know. They do sign forms. They are the official person who does these approvals we just went over, but they are not actually on the agreement. Technical contact is spoken of in a more general sense on the agreement. As well, the program manager on the project and the SIG financial analyst, the people we call the SIG team. So the person you will find on the agreement from the program part of the project is the SIG program manager. So on your agreement will be either my name or Leah Herman's name. But it's the job of the program manager and SIG financial analyst to basically do general reviews of reports. So we're not actually looking to make sure you have met your objectives. We're looking more at framework. We're looking to see if administrative changes are happening. We do a very quick, like 5-minute review of these reports. For the SF425, Jean probably looks a little bit closer at those than that, though. As well, it's our team that is approving the payment request. So we don't ask the technical contacts to do any work with claims. So we are also the ones who put your agreement amendments or prior approvals into the system. So if you're filling out paperwork and you give it to the technical contact will give it to us, and we're the ones tracking it and uploading it to the system to get formally processed. We also manage program communications. So we are in contact with the technical contact, trying to find out if there's anything going on with projects. We basically want to know if there's anything really good on a project or anything really bad on a project, right? So like if there's delays, or if there's, let's say there's been a change in the PD or something like that. We're trying to manage all these project communications and just make sure all the administration gets done. And that's basically our job. We also have the FPAC, as I mentioned, Grants and Agreements Administrative Contact. So this is the division of FPAC Business Center is called Grants and Agreements, which is GAD. We'll refer to them as GAD. And they have individuals called grants specialists, grants management specialists. And basically, there will be a grants management specialist as well listed on your agreement in box A. So there will be a NRCS program manager, there will be a grants management specialist on your agreement, as well as the chief's signature. So even though they're listed as a point of contact, overall, the program is responsible to be the main point of contact. So if you email them a question, a lot of times they're going to forward their response to us to get to you. So sometimes it's just more efficient to send us all your questions. But the thing about federal regulations is pretty much everything you submit, every claim, every report, it requires 2 people to view it. Therefore, the first viewing is done by the GMS in this FPAC group. And then once they approve it, it goes to the program team, and we do the final approval for all your claims and reports. So I'm going to talk a little bit in a minute about the EasyFed grant system, which is what you use to get all these things approved. So before I get into that, though, I want to mention match. The SIG program, it's a little bit of a burden, I think. A lot of the teams this year are university teams, and I think you're used to grants that don't have match requirements. But the SIG program does require match currently on both of their national programs. And for the SIG Classic program, it's actually written in statute. So match becomes very important that it's met. And essentially, the match percentage in the NFO, in the match percentage that gets written into your agreement that comes from the NFO, has to be met during the life of the project. So, for instance, if you have a SIG Classic award in your agreement states you have to meet 50% of a match requirement. If your team actually has a higher match requirement than that they have or they've written into their proposal, that they'll actually give more than that. But during the life of the award, let's say the match has been decreased, right? And you no longer can meet that full amount. Well, we can only relieve you of up to that 50%, right? So we're really stuck with statute, and basically, if you don't meet the match requirement, you may be required to have to pay that federal money back, right? So let's say at the end of the project, you were required to meet 50% match. For on-farm trials, it's more like 20% match, and for historically underserved groups, it's I think 33% of the total budget match. So it's different, you know, it depends on your agreement. But if you didn't meet that match, let's say you were supposed to meet 50% and you only met 40%, looking at the federal spending, you will, in the total budget, you will be asked to basically repay that. So we never want an agreement to get a project team to get to that point. So we will work with you on that, and we are watching it carefully, and we will be, if you're not reporting match, we're going to be asking you questions, because we never want any of our teams to be in a position where they have to pay back the federal government. Now, there are special circumstances. There are a couple of our projects that have had waivers from the chief, and they are not required to have match. But this is something new, and they had to get a waiver from the chief in order to get that. So also documentation, I'm not going to get into too much of that yet here, but basically you should be documenting all of your match, if it's in kind or cash, all of your non-federal portion, because at any point you could be asked to share that information. And 5% of our projects a year will get audited for match. So, you know, you want to make sure you're reporting match, because if your match isn't aligning with what you said you would give, it could flag the project, and it might get selected for an audit. As well, progress reports should, you know, match is considered part of the project. So progress reports, you should be reporting on both the federal portion of the project and the match portion of the project. Okay. So one thing I want to bring up really quickly about getting awards started is a lot of these projects have contracts and subawards. First of all, I want to talk about the difference between a contract and a subaward, because a lot of these don't get displayed on the agreements properly, but contracts and subawards are actually very different. A subaward is a group that is really part of the project team, and they often are charging indirect costs. Oh, someone's not muted. Please mute your microphone. So a subawardee often has is part of the project team, has indirect costs, and when they're invoicing you, they have line items, right? They are charging for things like supplies and personnel, fringe, just like your agreement to us. Contractors are different. Contractors should be charging basically an hourly rate. Often they are not seen as part of the project team. They are hired out to do a very specific job. So if you have questions about if you've got a contractor or a subaward, let us know. But it matters because subawards are required to have flow down language in your contract with your subawardee. So basically, your subaward agreement needs to be referencing the terms and conditions of your award with us. And while this might seem like a pain, it's actually very, very protective. We have run into problems with awardees where they don't put together good subawards, and their subawardee doesn't follow through with the work. And if you had those terms and conditions, it would actually give you a lot of legal leverage. So make sure on all your subawards you put flow down language. Also, I wanted to just make the point, often people have to change contractors and subawards during an award, is during the active life of an award. And if that happens, be sure to notify us, and just be aware if that award change is over $250,000, we will have to do some paperwork. So we have to get approval before that change is made. So before you can submit reports or get any claims paid, you have to get set up in the EasyFed grant system. So in order to do this, it's a little work. There's a couple steps. Basically, each organization has to have at least 2 people in the system in order to submit claims and reports. One of the people has to be considered a GAO, Grant Administrative Officer, and that should be the first person who requests access to EasyFed grants. They're kind of like the person with all the power in your organization to make changes with personnel in EasyFed grants. The other role, if you only have 2 people in EasyFed grants, must be a signatory official. And everyone else that usually are in the system are what they call grants processors. So like a signatory official, although they can't be the final signature, they can do certifications of reports and claims. So if you're in EasyFed grants, you're going to have one of these roles. If your organization only has 2 people, they've got to have these first 2 roles. I have shared yesterday with everyone several things called job aids that help explain this information and help you get into the system. In order to get into the system, it's a 2-step process. First, you have to be what we call e-authenticated. You need level 2 EasyFed grants authorization, and that to do that, you have to be e-authenticated. So there is a job aid on how to get this done. I just found out this morning that the job aid I sent out yesterday is not the updated one, so I'm going to send out an updated job aid after this talk. So there is a link to get e-authenticated. I think they only give you 2 tries, so you want to be really careful and make sure you go through it the right way, and you want to reference that job aid. So once you're e-authenticated and you have that level 2 authorization, you can actually go in and request access to EasyFed grants. And that is another job aid. And as well, I found out this morning that I sent out the old version and not the updated version. So I will send out an updated version after this. You can send us any of your questions on EasyFed grants, but most of the technical questions on using EasyFed grants, we really can't help you that well. And there is an EasyFed grants help desk, and they are good. They're very responsive. They're very helpful. So, you know, don't fight it. Don't spend a lot of time trying to figure this stuff out. If it's not working, send an email to the help desk. Don't spend hours and hours of your time. Let them help you. And if they just send you a job aid, you know, and it's not clear, you know, just reply back and ask them to call you and to go through things with you. And they will. They're very helpful, but they do tend, as a first tier support, they do tend to just send these job aids. So so I'm not going to go into details on payment requests because Jean is going to talk after me, and she will. But basically, they're processed through EasyFed grants. In general, we handle claims on a reimbursable basis. We can handle them other ways, but in general, it's reimbursable. We require supporting documentation. In order to pay a claim, your UEI number needs to be active. And if you are having issues with submitting a claim, let us know. There is a back way we can upload your claim. So the preferred way is through EasyFed grants, but there's other options. We don't want you to have to wait to get paid. Jean will go through more details on that though. So reporting requirements. Our program has 2 reports that are due. One is 2 regular reports. One's a technical report and one's a financial report. So our technical reports are due every 6 months. Technical progress reports. We have a template for that. It's in the grantee guide I sent out. It's the very, very last page. It's Appendix E. On our website, we separate the appendices, but in order to just make it simple, I attached them, and I don't think they're labeled as appendices very well. So you might want to just go to our website, but I wanted everyone to have that information. But we have a technical progress report template. It's going to be due. The report covers every 6 months from the start date. So the first report is actually due 7 months from the start date because you have 30 days to complete a progress report. Now, the EasyFed grant system sets up what is called a shell file, and it will not set that up until after the period of performance. So the period of performance is that 6-month period, and then EasyFed grants the next day will create a shell file, and you've got 30 days to complete that report. If you don't complete that report in 30 days, the EasyFed grant system is going to hold up your claims. So if you submit a claim and that report isn't submitted, it could delay your claim. As well, every year, financial reports are due. The financial report that is required is the SF425, which is just a 1-page report. The technical reports are just for that 6-month period, but the financial reports are cumulative, okay? Now, as well, at the project closeout, we require a final technical report and a final financial report. The technical report at project closeout is different, has a different template and a different goal than the technical progress report. You know, the progress report is really to update NRCS. We don't post those reports for the public. Okay, they're not accessible to the public. But it is for our review. We use those in order to ensure you're meeting your objectives and milestones. The final technical report should cover the whole project. And it has a different template. And I say this because it happens every year. We get a bunch of people who submit their final technical report, but they use the progress report template. So I know I'm telling you this early, but I don't want you to have to do the extra work. And what happens is they have to redo their whole final report because they've used the wrong template. The goal of the final report is to publicly post the results of the project. So you can't just give the results, you have to give a full story. You have to give, you know, a background, describe the drivers, you know, you have to explain any issues. You know, it's basically all the public gets, you know, from this project. So it's very important, it's very complete and clear, and tells a full story. The final financial report is just like the annual financial reports, but of course it covers the full project. Okay, I think I stated all of this already. Again, we have different templates for our progress report and final report. What happens is EasyFed Grants creates the shell file, and you just attach, you know, your completed template to that shell file, and then it'll get to us once you certify it. Just so you know, also for all reports, when you're submitting them to EasyFed Grants, there is a 2-part approval process. So a lot of individuals will submit their report. They think they've submitted their report, but it's actually sitting in the system waiting for their signatory official to review it. So, you know, when that happens, we try to communicate with you. Usually we'll ask you for your report. You'll say it's submitted, then we'll go in the system and we'll see that that's holding it up. If you're having any problems, though, submitting through EasyFed Grants, just send us the report to make sure we can get it cleared so claims aren't held up. All right, there's nothing else. I covered most of that already. So another thing I want to just give you a little detail on technical progress reports. As I said, NRCS is really different than other federal agencies that give out funding. And one of the things you'll find at NRCS is there's a lot of people who want to know the results of these projects. And sometimes they want to know the results during the projects. So although we don't post progress reports to our website. We do share progress reports internally to NRCS employees because a lot of them really want to know this information. You know, they're experts in this. They're overseeing a lot of people trying to share about new technologies. And a lot of times, you know, they want to see these results. So it's very important that you document things clearly. Another thing we'll run into is 10 years from now, someone might come to us and want to see a project that happened. So if we don't have really good documentation, it's really hard for them to understand what happened. So, you know, when in doubt, write it down. Be sure you're addressing all of your objectives. We like to see objectives separated in a progress report. As well, if you can't give all the data, a lot of times no one's going to want to muck through someone else's data. Please give summaries of the data once you start, once your data starts coming in. As soon as you have your deliverables, be sure to share them and send copies with these reports. As well, tell us about any challenges or delays. We will be checking these reports, and if there's budget changes and we see that, we're going to send you the paperwork so you can get that stuff moving and approved. I'm going to skip this because Jean's going to go into detail on this. As well, I'm not going to go into detail today on the final report. I think I've already covered it. I think a lot of you're not going to write your final reports for several years, but just remember there's a different template than the progress report. As well, I wanted to let you know that we do project evaluations. We have the technical contact do a project evaluation at the end of the project. We want to know if the project was a success. We want to know that the project team worked hard to try to make it a success, but mainly this evaluation is really internal to NRCS to understand if there's value in the project to NRCS and if we should be moving some of this information throughout NRCS, and if there's lessons learned. So I just wanted you to be aware we do these, and we may approach you to do a webinar if people start talking and there is a lot of value found in your project. I wanted to cover agreement modifications. Unexpected challenges and changes happen in projects. The amendments we are regularly processing are no-cost extensions, budget changes, change in scope of work, such as change in deliverables or objectives, and change in key personnel. Anytime you have a modification, you should be sending the paperwork to the NRCS CIG inbox. If you don't have the paperwork, just send us a note and we will send you that paperwork. So the first one, the most common one is no cost extensions. The first year no cost extension in general is pretty easy to get. When you do request one, we ask that it's really best to ask for a full year if you're doing a no cost extension, not to do 6 months, because then you avoid doing the paperwork. You can always end a project early, but you don't want to have to go through the paperwork again to extend your project. Second, no cost extensions are not assured, and they usually require more justification. With COVID, we haven't had any problems, but it seems like we're going to start getting a little more pushback there from our GAD colleagues. Hopefully not, but in general, we have successfully given first and second year no cost extensions, and in certain cases, even third year. But those are very unique situations. Sometimes people have a change in their scope of work. This is not very common, but major changes at least. But it is common to see minor changes. For instance, let's say you put in your deliverables that you're going to have 3 workshops, but you only need 2 workshops in the end, or only 2 workshops make sense. A change like that, it's important to have that change approved because you're held to your deliverables that are written in your agreement. But a minor change like that is pretty easy to do. A major change is harder. We have to get approval from the chief. So It just usually takes longer, but usually if your technical contact signs off on it, we can do that successfully. Budget changes. The key percentage here is 10% of the total project budget. So total project budget includes non-federal match and federal spending. So if you have 20% match and 80% of the project is federal, it's going to be 10% of that total, right? So if you're doing budget changes that are changes between categories over 10%, you will need to get a prior approval before you make those changes. Under 10% you can do, but you need to notify us because otherwise it could hold up a claim. We ask that you notify us in an email, copy your TC so they know, send it to the NRCS SIG inbox, also write it into your progress report. And again, subawards, you only need to do paperwork on that if it's over 250,000. Other than that, or if there's more than a 10% switch between cost categories. Other than that, subawards, you just have to notify us in an email. Changing key personnel. This does not require a prior approval by NRCS, but you do need to notify us because it is an agreement change, and we do ask for someone of authority at your organization to sign off on this. But basically, we will send you, we will change the key people in the agreement. Unlike other agencies, if a co-PD changes, if they're not on the agreement, you do not need to notify us necessarily, but it's probably a good idea to let your TC know. Environmental compliance and cultural resources. So there's three, okay, I'm at 53 minutes. I think I'm really running over, but I think basically I have 6 more minutes. So hopefully I can do this fast and leave a little bit of time for questions. So basically there's 3 regulations that we have to get someone at a local NRCS office to sign off on, and they are the National Environmental Policy Act, or NEPA, National Historic Preservation Act, and the Endangered Species Act. We basically have to make sure that the work we're doing on these grants is not affecting any of those. So this is a complicated process that we manage, and we basically have already sent out an e-directive to states and notified them and sent them your proposals. If you've already sent your environmental evaluation form that we sent out, we've also sent that to them. So it's their job to make sure they do this review by the end of July. So hopefully this won't stop anyone's activities, but someone from the state should be contacting you if there are ground disturbing activities. So if you don't know if you have ground disturbing activities, just let us know and we will find out for you. But there should be someone contacting you, and they fill out a form, as the government always does, basically saying if you're good to go or not. So just let us know if you want to know that clearance. Okay. So public affairs, the last thing I'm going to talk about is public affairs and communicating project successes. We want you to keep in mind that NRCS can help amplify your successes. We have a communications team. They have a Twitter account and a Facebook page, and they have the USDA website, and they have the USDA blog. So there's a lot of ways to get out the successes of your project. And if you want us to work with you on that directly, just send us an email. Other than that, we ask that you put information on any media releases and things like that in your progress reports. So if we want to highlight something, we can, easily clip it and share it with our communications team. We are regularly looking for that kind of information in progress reports. Also, I wanted to remind everyone to make sure to give the SIG program credit on, any media pieces you do. If you're giving a presentation to the public, or if you have written a document and the money for that has come from this project, be sure to give the USDA SIG program credit, and you'll find language on how to do that in the grantee guide. So our critical takeaways today is when in doubt, email the SIG inbox. And if you have EasyFed grants questions, email the help desk. I think this is the absolute most important thing for you to remember. I think we don't want our awardees to be in a situation where they can't get information to manage their grants well. So we try to be very accessible. So with that, I'll take any questions. I think I'm going to stop sharing to do that.
Yeah, Caroline, it looks like we just have one question in the chat right now.
Okay.
It's a question that says, we understood that HU organizations may not have to meet the match requirement. We believe we are considered HU and should qualify to not require a match. What is the process to get a waiver?
So if you applied to the program and your proposal did not have match on it, and you requested the waiver in your proposal, you will get that waiver. If you're an HU group and your proposal had match and you did not request the waiver in your proposal, you will not get that waiver. So the chief signing your agreement without match is basically that waiver. It's that approval and that waiver. Okay. So we do have, I think, 2 awards that requested the waiver and got the waiver. So I think all the other HU projects actually had match. Okay, there's another question there. Leah, are you managing that? I see someone's hand up.
Yeah, it looks like David, you have a hand raised. I'm going to unmute your mic so you can feel free to ask your question if you would like.
Hi, David.
All right, I'm just trying to unmute this 1 second.
Okay.
I'm so sorry. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Yes.
I was the one that sent in the chat request question regarding the HU. So I think you answered it. But sure.
Okay.
If we hadn't put in the request application,
Yeah.
is there still a process for us to apply for the waiver?
I don't think so, because the problem with that is that your proposal was selected based on the activity of the match. So I think your proposal did get the HU match, though. It has a reduced match requirement. But because it was selected based on the activity of the match, it's required. It would be hard to get that approval at this point. And we don't really have a process for it, is basically the problem.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah. Tanner, I think you have a question.
Yes, I haven't heard yet from a technical contact to get my project started, so I'm wondering when I might be hearing from them.
Yes, most of them will contact you after this this meeting. We did technical contact training about 3 weeks ago, and we just sent out a reminder to all of them. Some of them are on this call, but you should hear from them soon. And if you don't hear from anyone in the next week, let us know, and we will just make that connection for you. Okay. Just email myself, Leah, or the inbox.
Okay, and is there an opportunity to still try to file? I was waiting for the technical contact to file for the opportunity to reimburse for project costs that happened beforehand, but I haven't heard yet. So I've been delaying my project for several months and trying to get going as quickly as possible. So I'm just hoping to hear from you quickly. Is there a chance?
I know, Tanner. I'm working on your paperwork now. So the technical contact doesn't actually do the agreement process. I'm the one responsible for SIG Classic to do the first review of the agreement material. So I've got 3 more that I haven't reviewed, and yours is one of them. Sorry about that.
Okay, thanks, Caroline. I'll look forward to talking with you.
And I will work with Crystal to see if we can do pre-award costs, but I'll send you the process. Again, one got rejected, but I feel like I should be able to get it approved because the historically we did approve them, even though we have language in the NFO saying we don't. So I'm hoping we can still get some approved if they're needed.
Okay, great. Thanks. I've been tracking beginning this month, and if we're not able to, then I just won't sort of call for that. But I have tracking in the event that we're able to make that happen. So thank you. I'll look forward to more direct communication with you offline. Thanks.
That sounds great. Thanks, Tanner. Christina, you've got your hand up.
Yes. Hi. So we are in the process of working on the agreement for our project. And I had sent a question before whether we could have our collaborator manage the farmer incentives. And so I got a reply that was fine from your team. And so since we are working on the agreement now, I was wondering if this is the moment now to put that to make that change. So basically move the incentives from the other category in the budget towards that sub award.
Yeah, I'm gonna let Leah answer this because I think she's more familiar. This is probably an on-farm trials project.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, so I can answer your question 2 ways. One, I'd be happy to talk with you specifically kind of offline about your requests because that's something that might not be relevant to the general group. But your question is a good one in terms of if you need to make budget modifications and you need to make them. Since we're midstream with the agreement development process, is now the right time to do it, or is it after the agreements are finalized? There's not a right or wrong way to approach this. I think in general, if we make them now, it might just delay things a little bit, but there's a lot of value in just squaring things up. Like Caroline mentioned, there's a path for budget modifications. We fully expect that your budgets are estimates and they're going to change. So after the agreement is finalized, you have some leeway to make adjustments up to 10% of that total budget. And all you have to do is notify us. Or if you need to move a larger chunk, we can just do a budget amendment. So again, I'm happy to talk to you about the specifics of your project and how you want to proceed, but both are viable paths.
Okay, thank you very much.
Sugata?
Yes. So you mentioned you have not reviewed 3 proposals. Is mine one of them?
Actually, I think I did review yours, but I'll resend the email if for some reason it didn't go through.
You mean review mean the document?
Yeah, the statement of work.
Okay.
I send out the statement of work document.
Yeah,
And then so we upload that, and the grants and agreements team does a more thorough financial review, because we're not really financial people, we're more programmatic. So they know all the rules of 2 CFR 200.
Okay. I sent it back, the SOW.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So now it will move forward.
Yes.
Okay.
Now it will move forward. We have 2 agreements from your university, and I've uploaded your counterparts, but not yours yet.
Right.
So
it's
in my task list. Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Bye.
Okay. Any more questions? Oh, Lydia. Yes, that was the very first agreement we put into the system, and I don't think it's done yet, but let us know your question.
That's okay. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. My question is more about the timeline, I guess, related to the agreement start date, and just wondering, because we're so tied in, as I'm sure most of these projects are, with the growing season and the timing of working with farmers and planting things. Do we, because we're, getting a later start than I think our overly optimistic timeline proposed in the proposal, at what point do we decide that we wanted to do a no cost extension, or should we just, like, from the get-go kind of adjust our timeline, since we haven't started yet?
Yeah, I would say if your agreement is not in place yet, until it's fully signed, if you want to do a later start on your project, so you have a whole different kind of cycle, I would do it up front. They should be able to put a start date out several months from now, actually, if that's what you prefer. And I can work with you on that. Just copy me on your emails, because I haven't seen the communication. I don't know if they've been communicating with you, Lydia. I haven't seen any of the communication, so I can't, I don't know.
Okay.
But if that's kind of what you would like to do, or you could have the start date be right away and just plan on doing a no cost extension to it. And you can do that, pretty early on. I mean, if you want, we've never had anyone submit it, I think this early, like the first month of the project, but, you can, we have submitted them just within a year of the first project, so, or the first year of the project, like before the end of the first 12 months, just because things happen and people see those timelines. But yes, if you send it to us, we'll submit it, basically.
Okay. Yeah, I haven't heard anything from anybody yet, since you and I last communicated. So we haven't really, we've been working on like some non-groundbreaking type activities, like working on our survey and getting, starting communicating with farmers, but nothing where we've been spending any money. So I wasn't sure if there was like a benefit to delaying the start date, or to just doing, if there was any, benefit one way or the other, but.
Right. Right. And I'm afraid, because of the timing of things, this whole program has gotten, usually we get our agreements done in like February, March, but we've had so many delays. So I think this is affecting a lot of teams. So let's talk offline and try to figure out the right approach for your project.
That sounds great.
That? Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks. Let's see. Vivek Sharma?
Hi, this is Vivek from University of Florida. I submitted a preliminary environmental review questionnaire, probably a month ago, and after that I have not heard anything. So I'm sure it would be the contract would be in the process, right? Just want to follow up on that. Yeah.
Yes. So the due date that we have given the state contacts that are doing the environmental evaluations is the end of July. Tom, actually, you can tell me the actual date. I don't remember it offhand. So they have instructions now. The instructions have gone out, because this is an e-directive. It had to get approved by the chief, because I can't assign work to state people, basically. The chief has to. So it was very coordinated, and they have your proposal, and they have, if you have sent in your, your evaluation form, they have that too. And if you want us to speed up that review, I'm willing to contact the state and ask them to do it early. But, formally, they've been given a date at the end of July that they have to have it done by.
Hey, Carolyn, this is Tom. That due date is July 28th.
It's July 28th. So that's the due date we gave the states. Does that help?
Yeah, so we have like different states involved. So the review will be happening in the 3 different states. We have 3 different states involved.
Are you an on-farm trials award or are you a SIG Classic award?
On-farm trial, yeah.
So for on-farm trials, Leah, you'll have to help me here. Does each state do a CPA 52?
That's correct. Each state will do a CPA 52 for all of the producers in that area.
So basically the request went out to 3 states. And so we asked them, I think, to coordinate their communication with you, I believe, but you might actually end up getting 3 states communicating with you, but they should reach out to you and ask you questions.
I'll be going into more of the specifics of the environmental evaluations, considerations for on-farm trials awardees at that later presentation. That starts at, I believe it's 2:30.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
For SIG Classic, it's we don't do as much on the ground activity, so the requirements are a lot less. So there is just definitely one state contact that will contact you, even if you have a multi-state project. Okay, I think Christina, do you have another question or?
No, sorry. I think I kept my hand raised. Sorry.
Okay, that's okay. I think we can move on to the next agenda item. So Jean, I think that's our oops.
Okay, I'll go ahead and share my presentation.
Yeah, we're running about 4 minutes late, so.
Okay, can you guys see?
Yes, we can see.
Okay. Okay, so I'm going to speak today on claims, which is done on the SF-270 form, and then the annual financial reports, which is done on the SF-425. There will be samples if you have already received them in your toolkit that Caroline sent out. They are the most current forms that are being used. And I'll say this repeatedly throughout my little presentation. If you guys have any questions when it comes time to fill out your claim or your annual 425 report next year, please do not hesitate to contact the SIG box, and I will be more than glad to set up a quick call with you, and I will walk you through how to fill it out, either in EasyFed grants or a hard copy, depending on how your access is working at the time. So for payment requests, that's on the SF-270. Like Caroline had stated previously, EasyFed grants, you'll go in, you'll get your access. There'll be a shell out there that you can fill out. It's the same as a hard copy, but it's electronic form, and you will fill it out and submit it through EasyFed grants. The date that it's received in the system, within 30 days, it has to be paid per the 2 CFR 200. If you find that after 30 days you have not received your payment in your checking account, please reach out to the SIG inbox, email us so we can contact grants and agreements and find out what's going on. We have, they've had some new grants management specialists hired lately, and they've been going through training. So we want to make sure that we get your claim prioritized and paid timely, so that way you can continue with your project and not have any payment issues to vendors, reimbursing subawardees, and so forth. Do know that in EasyFed grants, you can only submit one claim at a time that gets processed. If you submit a second claim, it will just sit there in limbo until that first claim has been pushed to our work list for processing and then paid out. So please know that you submit one claim, we pay it, then we can go and get that next claim and start working on it. We can't pay 2 claims in the same day. We have to allow one claim to go through the entire process at a time. Also, in your new awardee signed agreement, you'll see you can make your payment requests on a quarterly basis. And that's however you do your accounting. It can be a regular calendar quarter. It can be the fiscal quarter. If you need to make them on a monthly basis, feel free to do so, but not for just $100. We have quite a few claims that come in every day that we're working on. So we ask quarterly payments. And if you even want to go at a 6-month period, you can do that as well, depending on how things are going with your project. And if there's not been a lot of work due to weather or extenuating circumstances, you can make your payment request for a longer period of time if necessary. Let's see. Okay, also, usually most payments are on a reimbursable basis. However, if you request an advance, if you need something to get a project going and you don't have the funds available, we do allow advances. Those have to be requested 3 weeks in advance of the start date. So, and those are sent to the SIG inbox. Those are not done through EasyFed grants. So if you want an advance, it has to come via email. You still have to fill out the SF-270 form, but it will be in a different manner because it will be based on an advance, not a reimbursement. So we still need the supporting documentation, what you're going to spend that money on in the future, but it comes through the SIG inbox. And then I take it, I process it, get it set up, and then I create a ticket in the system for grants and agreements to process. Also, after 30 days of receiving your advance payment, we need at least a partial documentation showing that some of the money has been liquidated, that you have spent X amount of dollars on certain expenses. So that way we can start chipping away at that advance dollar amount. Because if you want another advance down the road, we need to have known you've liquidated at least 70% of that first advance before we can grant another advance to you in the system. And then, but that's something that, you know, if you want to do, I'll be more than glad also to walk you through that as well. It's really easy. Let's see what else. Okay, so supporting documentation for your claim reimbursements. A lot of you have accounting reports, so we accept accounting detailed transaction reports. We like to see who you're paying for personnel, the people for fringe, then the miscellaneous supplies that you're paying out, the travel, who traveled where, you know, if it's lodging at the Hampton Inn, if there was an airfare to, you know, wherever. We like those line items. Also for your sub-awardees, which sub-awardee are you paying out? We've seen where sometimes the invoices from the sub-awardees are part of your supporting documentation. We also accept operating statements. Of course, your accounting department would have that. And then there's also an Appendix C that was in that toolkit. It's the supporting documentation guide. There is a template in there that kind of shows you what we're looking for in terms of supporting documentation. It's something easy. We don't need receipts. We don't need a lot of individual little pieces of paper. We just want to see that you're paying Jane Doe and Bobby Smith traveled to Hawaii for a field site demonstration. And then we're going to pay the University of Kentucky, our sub-awardee that's been working with us. But, you know, please work with your accounting office to ensure that that supporting documentation is attached in EasyFed grants along with your SF-270. When I review the claims, if I find that I need more supporting documentation and a better cost breakdown, I will email you and ask for it. But if you have any questions, again, please feel free to email me at the SIG box, and I'll be more than glad to go over, you know, everything with you. And there's also, like I said, the SF270 template was in that toolkit guide, and there's instructions on the last several pages to explain the different line items so you know which dollar amounts go in line A, line F, line I, and so forth. So by now, I'm sure all of you have signed in and created an account in sam.gov, and you've gotten your unique entity identification number. We have found in the last 6 or 7 months that grants and agreements will hold up a claim and we are not able to pay it if that UEI becomes inactive. This is an annual renewal that you must do every year and keep it active. So whoever set up the account in sam.gov, they would have put their name and email address in the system. And in doing so, 45 to 90 days in advance of the expiration date of the active UEI, there will be an email that sam.gov sends out to let you know, hey, you're coming up on a renewal, your registration UEI is going to go inactive. Please respond to that email and go into sam.gov and ensure that you click the renewal, go through the renewal process again. It doesn't take but maybe 2 weeks from what I understand from other awardees. And then that way you ensure that you stay current and you don't have to worry about a payment being held up because your UEI is now inactive. Also in sam.gov, it requests your bank account information. So at some point down the road, if checking account information changes, please go into sam.gov and update that banking information. It takes about 48 hours from the time it's accepted in sam.gov. It then has to, overnight for about 48 hours, it has to then update in our federal system in EasyFed grants. So we just want to make sure that if you change bank accounts, change it in sam.gov well in advance of expecting a claim to be paid out, because we don't want to have to go and track down where your payment went if it went to an older bank account that's now been changed or no longer being used. Also, sam.gov does have a website, a phone number, and an email help desk contact information that they will be more than glad to walk you through any issues you have with them. So that way you can make sure that you stay current, your banking information is current, your address is current, your contact information is current, and that UEI stays active every year. Unfortunately, we can't help with that. So, that's why we encourage you to make sure that you contact sam.gov. So we've found over the last few years, supporting documentation is the #1 reason why payments are not paid out timely and they're put on hold. A lot of times we'll get just a high-level summary of personnel, fringe, contractual, indirect costs, but we need to know the minutia. We need to know those individual line items, the subline items for personnel, for travel, supplies, which sub-awardees are you paying out? Which contractors and vendors are you paying out? Because we make sure that all those expenses that you're putting on that 270, you're staying in alignment with your budget narrative. So that way there aren't any unallowable costs coming through. And typically it's the accounting detailed report from accounting department. It's an operating statement, or you can use the template that's in Appendix C, the supporting documentation guide that's in the toolkit that was emailed to you by Caroline. And again, we do not need copies of receipts. And as I've stated, if you guys have any questions, please reach out to me. I'll be more than glad to walk you through your first claim, your second claim, and look at your documentation to ensure that all your I's are dotted and your T's are crossed. And then that way, going forward, you've got it and you'll have no problems. If for some reason, by the time you go to submit your first claim in EasyFed grants and you don't have access, here again is our SIG inbox email address. And this is where you can email us as a temporary workaround until you get full access in EasyFed grants. You can submit to this inbox your SF-270 and your supporting documentation. You can also submit your first progress report or your second progress report, depending on what's going on with you and EasyFed Grants Help Desk, and if you're having issues with your access. We provide this workaround because we don't want to hold you up on getting your claims paid. We don't want to hold you up on not being in compliance for your reporting requirements. But here at the bottom, this is the EasyFed Grants Help Desk email. So that way I would ask you to please contact them at the first issue of any problems you may have. Please reach out to them so that way they can start working on your issue and trying to get your issues resolved and get you a timely resolution, so that way you can have all your submissions through EasyFed Grants, whether it be your financial report, your progress report, or your claim. That's the best way to have all your submissions done, is electronically through the system. Now to your annual 425. Again, yes, you should directly submit it in EasyFed Grants. After your first year, from start date to your anniversary date, EasyFed Grants will create that SF-425 shell out there that you can fill out and submit to us. However, like I said, if you don't have the shell out there, if there's EasyFed Grants access issues, please feel free to email it to us at the inbox. There is a sample form that Caroline sent in the toolkit guide in that email of the SF-425 and the instructions. The SF-425, as with the SF-270, certain line items do have formulas. So when you start entering your data, certain other line items will automatically populate because there's formulas in there. So that will make life a lot easier. And then that way you'll see how it all falls into place. If your end date, let's say, is May 31st, 2024, your SF-425 will be due June 30th, 30 days later. That's 30 days from the anniversary of your start date. So on line F on this form, on line 10I, J, and K, it's the recipient share section. That is for match, the cost share. Please be sure to fill that out on your 425. It's towards the bottom of the page. That's very important because matching funds, we want to ensure that you're expending your funds on a timely basis throughout the year. And it is a cumulative amount. So every year that amount should increase. As on your SF-270, that amount more than likely should increase every time you submit a claim. If you're submitting quarterly payment requests, it may only increase $10,000, $15,000. It may increase just a couple of thousand, but please ensure that you're gathering your match information from your sub-awardees. And if you're at a university, maybe it's from institutional support area, that you're grabbing all of that information and you're getting it on your SF-270 and your 425. We want to ensure that as time goes by, you are expending match, and towards the end of the project, you won't have any issues on trying to figure out why you have only expended a little bit, and then we don't want to have to go back and request federal funds from you to make up the difference and so forth. But I will say this, every time I look at a claim and I review it, I ensure that match has changed. And if several claims go by and I see that you have not expended enough match, I'll just reach out with an email and ask what's going on. Hey, do y'all have, are there any issues going on? Sometimes we'll see issues noted in the progress report, and then we're aware that there's something going on behind the scenes. So we understand then why we're not seeing match continuing to be drawn down on your end. Also, if there's match issues, that puts a red flag out there for us, and you could potentially be a candidate for our match audit each year. So that's another reason why we really would like to see match increase at a decent enough rate to know that federal funds are being drawn down and match funds are being drawn down. Also, for your records on your end, keep all your documentation for match, whether it be letters, receipts, emails, whatever, because if there is ever an audit, you will need to provide all that documentation. So we don't need it, but we advise you strongly to keep it for your records. And then, of course, if you ever have any questions on, again, how to fill out the SF-425, please email us and we'll be more than glad to sit with you and walk you through it. Also, on the final SF-425, that is going to be from this, that it's going to cover the whole entire project time period. So, and that's going to be due 120 days after your project end date. And there will be a shell created in EasyFed grants for you to fill out. And then at that time, we will look at match. We will ensure that the cash disbursements and the cash receipts all match up to your final claim as well. And we'll ensure that everything lines up, everything's been paid out properly. And if there's any funds left on the table, we will de-obligate those. But again, please know that that match needs to be expended in a timely manner over the course of your project, because otherwise you will have to pay the government back the federal funding until that % is reached. So, and I will say, if y'all come across anything over the course of your project where there's issues trying to get match documentation, please feel free to reach out to us in the SIG box and let us know. So that way we're aware that you're having issues trying to gather your match information from outside entities. Does anyone have any questions? Okay, so Caroline, no one has questions, so I'll turn it back over to you.
Okay. So I think we're going to take a break now from 2 to 2:30. There's a break, and just to remind everyone, if you have a SIG Classic award, you're actually done. You don't have to come back. If you have an on-farm trials award, you need to come back and tune in again at 2:30 for the on-farm trials award session. So, and if you don't know which award you have, just send me a note and we'll let you know. Basically, the SIG Classic are the ones I manage, and the on-farm trials are the ones Leah manages. Okay. But thank you, everyone, and we'll see that.